We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. Now we're going to do things a little different. We are going to provide an honest look at Ole Miss athletics for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. That is what we do. Hell be to me. I'm just kidding. Tune in for some Ole Miss sports news. We're going to give it to you straight. Yeah, right now. The POMcast starts now. It happens now. Holy cow. Listen to me. It's starting. Well, it's going to start right about now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the POMcast. I am your host on this magical mystery tour we call Ole Miss Fandom, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for stopping by today. We're probably going to have a relatively short show today. Give you a couple of minutes back. So thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, I do want to tell you about the Vault Society. That is the big push from the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation. It's a 5-year commitment of support and $5,000 a year, and there's a benefit chart on the site. We'll give you that in just a second. But what you need to know is all gifts to Ole Miss between now and June 30th, that's a couple weeks away, will receive triple points. Red points are non-deductible and go towards priority seating. Blue points are 90% tax deductible and go towards parking and non-home ticketed games, postseason, bowl games, neutral site, etc. We have a good example of that coming up on Labor Day. If you have any questions about that, go to give2athletics.com. Again, that is give2athletics.com. If you want to watch the show, you can catch us at the Stephen Willis on Twitter or at the Rebel Walk on Twitter. Facebook, you can hit us up at facebook.com/POMcast or the Rebel Walk. You can hit us up on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. That way you'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. And, of course, you can catch us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. If audio is more of your bag, you can catch us on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and Pandora. We're also on smaller podcatchers, but if we were to name them all, we'd be here all day. So thank you very much for listening to that. We know we don't focus our energy towards the podcast, but we do want to have it out there for people interested in listening on their way home. I know our videos and our content is all pretty short to begin with, but that way you can go one after another. You know, you can mass consume stuff. So thank you very much for that. Let's see, what else? This weekend's Rebel Rankings, Friday at 2 o'clock. You can see the most important upsets in Ole Miss history. We've done the audio and all that. We're editing that now, getting that done. Hopefully that'll be good to go by Friday. Should be pretty interesting, to say the least. But thank you very much for that. Let's see, videos yet. Last week's POMcast, I think we're averaging about 1,500 views per video that we put out now. We've come a long way since averaging 30 back in February. But it's upwards near 1,500 views per video right now. I'm not saying it's going to stay there. I'm not saying that the Bianco stuff didn't push this. But it's a ludicrously high number. So thank you very much for tuning in. We'll keep pushing out decent content even in this list season as we've hit the off season in football and everybody's like scrambling to figure out what to talk. So that it's important. It's about, go back to the Jackson Massacre is not on there. Neither is the 1952 game was 69 years ago, and because it didn't mean anything. The coach ended up of greatest upset in Ole Miss history. but it's not only doing there. And the Rebel rankings Friday to be offensive player in Ole Miss. I want to tell you about that really see, but what media problem in the country, all topics, levels of media over 20 years saying this. There's a major problem in media. And it all started a few years ago with people getting into the field to make a difference. And the fact that you didn't really understand the field enough to where you think you could make a difference doing this job means that you were going to editorialize down the road. It's not about what you cover, it's how you cover it and what you can force the end result to be. It's basically the person gets power through control of information. That's what I'm talking about. And that is what is going on. And the end result is what you've seen for the last year. And if you don't trust the media at the highest levels about super important things, why would you trust their reporting on sports writing? Why would you just willy-nilly believe what they're saying? They have the same thing. The same problems exist there that exist up at the Washington Post. Everything is subscriber-based. What they cover and how they cover it is based on what will earn them money. Money has gotten way too close to the assignment desk in journalism. And as such, you see this being drifted to what, this will charge. People call it quick clickbait or subscriber bait. But it's a real thing. They're going to cover it in a way that earns them money. Is this story a moneymaker? You will actually hear people talk about this story. We're not covering this because it's not a moneymaker. And this is the world we live in now. Now, some people will tell you, it's just a lazy thing to believe what they're saying, believe what they're doing. But the problem is now that used to, like 10, 15 years ago, they were right 40 to 50% of the time whenever they hit their sources. Now they're right under 20% of the time. They're below a Mendoza line hitter. They are pushing things, and because of that capital built up over 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and the way that people are used to receiving information, they're able to get a little bit of a pass on credibility, even though there's such underperforming happening. Now, this is what people need to understand. Like I said, I was in the media for 20 years. I know all about this stuff. I know about the behind the scenes. I've had all those conversations. But if people are lying to pollsters, which they undoubtedly did, they've got them wrong 2 elections in a row. If people are lying to news media at that level, why would you trust an unnamed source in regards to, I don't know, a coaching search, a player, something going on there? Why would you trust an unnamed source? Why would you just willy-nilly believe it? Why wouldn't you have the critical thinking ability to say, well, okay, I heard this. Let me see if I hear it from somewhere else. And by somewhere else, I mean outside of the circle where the same source could be hitting all these sites, which is one problem we also have. There's one guy that hits one site, one guy hits another site, and they're all in. It's a very close circle. And it's gotten to the point where, damage could be done to a program. Damage could be done to a personal life based off of this. People playing games out in the public sphere could actually hurt a program. And there honestly probably needs to be consequences for that happening. If you're reporting things with an agenda and you're hurting us directly, we're going to take away your press credential. That's the way we need to handle that. There needs to be some legitimate fight back from press credentials standpoint from the SID's office. or else you're going to deal with people. I'm not going to say they made it up, although somebody did because it didn't happen, but they spoon-fed them bad information. The way that it is, your source, how good it is, depends on how close to the center it is in the game of telephone. That's all this is. Somebody tells somebody else a little piece of information. If they're that first-hand call, that's an excellent source if you can get them on. If they're eighth, that's a problem because by then it's going to change 3 or 4 times. There's going to be factoids that get misplaced. And you can tell by what people are reporting where they stand on their source stands on the telephone list. Now, with the what was it, Gilbo or whatever her name is, situation, it was obvious that he was being spoon-fed information. Now, the question, whenever you do this, whenever you read this, is the school spoon-feeding him, or is he getting it from another source? That's the question. If it's the school, it's probably correct. It's first-hand information. If it's from somebody else, it could be eighth hand. It could have been somebody placating that guy to change the story. It could be that guy trying to force something to happen. Either way, it's politics behind the scene of a specific decision and doesn't really mean anything other than spending time on drama and all the professional wrestling or soap opera aspects of a story that, it's not real. It's not right. Like the Bianco thing the other day. Everything he was doing was what he was supposed to be doing. Everything that was pre-planned. And people wanting to believe this conspiracy theory of something going on was trying to make that make sense into their story. Because their chosen outcome of a 50-50 question, because every time this comes up, every time, it's like, does he stay, does he go? 50-50. We're going to figure out which side we land on, and we're going to tailor our coverage based off of that. That is everything to do with this. I've seen this 1,500 coaches searches and Rival. But it's absolutely true, and it's absolutely effective. Because you can all of a sudden speak from a position of authority on something that you might not know anything about. You don't know exactly where you stand on this. I do have it on pretty good authority, whatever, listen to everything that's going on. I'm not going to report it here because I don't do the breaking stories game. I think that's silly. I think it's wasted effort. If you break something, you have it for 30 seconds, 60 seconds on Twitter, and that's about it. And that is not worth 7 or 8 hours worth of effort on. What's going to happen is going to happen. But I have it on pretty good authority. I've got sources down there, and I've got sources in Oxford that it just didn't go down the way you think it did. And people jumping the gun on this is the reason it was able to be pushed forward. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 tweets, different tweets last week saying Mike Bianco interviewed. Who says? Why use that word? Why? It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, we are going to talk about, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we are going to talk about the defense in Louisville and all that. I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit there, completely unplanned. And we're going to talk a little bit about the defense and what Louisville is expecting and what Louisville is going to see. Anyway, stick around. We'll be right back in a couple of seconds. All right, welcome back to the POMcast. I do want to tell you about the Rebel Walk before we get started. Evelyn and her team do a fantastic job. They provide a subscriber level experience for no money. The only thing you have to invest is your time, and boy, oh boy, is it well worth it. Go over to the rebelwalk.com to find out more. The rebelwalk.com. Let me adjust wires real quick. All right. When it comes to the defense, last year it was much maligned, and I've given you reasons why that has happened. You've got lack of film, no chance to make personnel decisions, no regular fall camp. This is no spring, no fall camp, and you're going into Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts coming into Oxford. I mean, it was going to be a dangerous situation, regardless. Just no spring, but football coaches are notoriously slow decision makers. Now, I don't necessarily put Lane Kiffin in that category, but I would put DJ Durkin in that category. The defensive coordinators that rely on personnel decisions in a position group, you haven't seen them. You haven't really developed a relationship with those players. And all of a sudden, you have what happened at the beginning of the season last year, because you're just guessing at that point who's going to go into that spot. You take a guy, you put him into the lineup based off of the first 4 or 5 days of camp. As we all know, in the first 4 or 5 days of camp, first 4 or 5 days of spring, there's always somebody that shows out that regresses to the mean as it goes on. And the same thing kind of happened at the beginning of last season. Because there were so few practices. I mean, you're looking at like 20 practices whatsoever over the course of a year. I mean, basically a spring practice, let's play a full season, let's go. And by the middle of the season, if you notice, personnel started going out and the defense started getting better, started making plays. It all kind of started about the Arkansas game, because of the interceptions that gets thrown out, but they actually played pretty well. And it culminated with them playing pretty well against Indiana in the Outback Bowl. Allowed us to win those games, even without Elijah and Jerry and all those guys in the lineup. So that's what 2020 looks like for this team. Now, there's quotes in, let's see, we've hit Athlon season, we've hit Lindy's season. And there's quotes in one of them just saying, an offensive coach saying, I don't think DJ Durkin is a very good defensive coordinator. And it's like, well, how do you know? There's nobody that gets hired to this staff that's not highly motivated and highly good. So the conversation has been had. But the reason they know is off of last season. Everything is so reactionary. They did this, so we need to do this. They did this, so we need to do this. It's so reactionary. We've gotten that way off of everything in society. Something happens, we react. There's not so much a proactive anymore in society. So everything's reacting, so your opinions and judges are going to be coming off that reactive instinct that has been built into our society. Well, people don't take into account the roadblocks that we're facing. Really a new staff and what they had to go through. Because if you remember correctly, DJ Durkin and all those didn't get hired until fairly late. Lane was fairly methodical in the hiring of football coaches when he first got here. So they were new. There were people that just didn't know each other. There's people that dealing with the coronavirus and everything. Once you need those personnel, you need that film. You need something like Mississippi State at least had a similar defense. Under Mike Leach that they had under Joe Moorhead. This one that we did 2 years ago, we did 4-3, 4-man front with Wesley McGriff, or 3 years ago, I should say. 2 years ago, we were Mike McIntyre, old school 3-4. Last year, we were DJ Durkin, which was a little bit of a hybrid between the two. We do a lot of 3-4 stuff with 4-3 principles. We do a lot of blitzing and all the explosive. Now, they were also counting on Jacob Springer and Otis Reese to be eligible. Those eligibility things didn't turn up until the end of the year. Good news for us, there's not much film on them. Those are our best two defensive backfield players. There's not much film on them. I'm looking forward to seeing Jacob Springer play this year. And those two playing near the line of scrimmage with Sam Williams has a chance to be a fantastic game. And if we can force a double team at all on the defensive line, because either Isaiah Aton, Jamal Gordon, or Tawan Malone requires one, that's going to make their life a little bit easier. So it's all cascading and working together. Chance Campbell coming in the linebacker. This is like last year was about reconstruction of the defensive backs. That's what they saw. And those players didn't get eligible, but that didn't mean they were trying to reconstruct those. And they did that without film on the defense. They did it, I mean, a heck of a job recruiting to that. This signing day was about the defensive line and reconstructing them. You can see it's coming in. The last two, literally, are the linebackers, and one of which is an all Big Ten honorable mention, Chance Campbell. The other one will be Momo Sanogo or Lakia Henry. So those players in reconstruction of this defense is going to look completely different than last year. It just is. If you're expecting the defense to be as porous as they were last year, it's just folly. You've added an All-American American Conference player in Jacob Springer, former top 50 player Otis Reese in the backfield. Now you got a top 100 player coming in on the defensive line and two top 5 JUCO defensive linemen coming in. They're retooling. You can see it happening. And with this offense and the way this defense is designed to perform, it shouldn't take too long to get there, because this defense isn't designed to be a suffocating, old-school Alabama-type defense. It's just not. It's designed for explosive plays. And we are getting people on the field that can make those plays. Take a 2nd and 4 and turn it into a 3rd and 11. Maybe pick the ball off down the field. That's just something he can do. That is what this defense is for. And it will not, in my opinion, resemble talent-wise what it was last year. You got some flashes in the Outback Bowl of what they want. The Tylen Knight, who's turning into a heck of a fumble guy. He better protect the ball around him. Otis Reese picking off passes. Now, in and out, whenever Jacob Springer and Otis Reese and Sam Williams and they're playing all their games, there's going to be some drop 7, drop 8. There's going to be some drop 5 and blitz 6. It's going to be interesting to see. But the one thing you can count on is this defense is going to look different than it did last year, as far as a talent and an execution standpoint, because those guys have had a spring now. They're going to get a normal fall camp. And I am unbelievably excited for Tysheem Johnson. We have to find a place to put him on the field. I don't know where that's going to be, but we need to get that guy on the field. The ball finds him. He's got that gift. He's got Honey Badger-esque attributes. I'm not calling him the Honey Badger. I'm saying if he develops, he has a chance to get there. He's a super athlete. He really is. So it's going to be great. Tysheem Johnson and Tawan Malone, that's going to be our northeastern connection to this defense. I'm looking forward to that. But this defense is going to look different. In Louisville, they don't have Tutu Atwell. They don't have that running back. They have a quarterback that turned the ball over way too much last season. But Atwell, legit player, and would have been a matchup nightmare for inside linebackers. So it'll be interesting to see. There's people, that call Malik Cunningham, the quarterback at Louisville, kind of Lamar Jackson light. I don't think I see that, but he's a really good player. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Scott Satterfield puts on the field opposite of us. But our defense is going to be in a better place. I do expect probably their offense in that game to perform above average to what they do in the season. Because if we're going to be honest about this, it's going to take probably 2 weeks and 2 weeks worth of games for the defense to really find their footing. That's just my opinion on that. But with everything going on, we are going to, by the way, we're still trying to hook up the recruiting show. I think we're doing a test later on this afternoon. And once we get that, we'll be able to hit you guys up a little bit. So I'm excited. I really am. Well, I think I'm going to give you a couple minutes back. Thank you very much for watching us today. Enjoying the show, doing whatever you do. I think, we're doing just a fantastic job of preparing for the season. And now hopefully we can start focusing our energy on football instead of being so regressive about decisions that have already been made. All right. That'll be our show today. Hotty toddy.